left back, FPL fan focus.
Well, hey.
Well, hey, a little bit eager with the ways there, gents. Hello, listeners. I am joined by Captain Russ and NVD. How you doing, boys?
All good, mate. All good. Can't wait for another fan focus. Some more tips and tricks.
Me neither. He's patiently been waiting in the wings. And without further ado, I'm honoured to introduce FPLTIPZ. Mr. Harry, how are you, sir?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. Evening all, how are we?
We're very well. I'm really looking forward to finding out some tricks and tips from you, Harry. I think listening to your intel is going to only help us all and hopefully the community out there. So, guys, if you don't follow him already, at FPLTIPZ on Twitter, it's Harry's handle. He's also got a fantastic YouTube channel, FPLTIPZ there as well. So tune in there for weekly videos, sometimes twice a week if he's got the time, but also on his YouTube page you'll find some really good intel. That aside, the reason we really want to speak to Harry is form. So some fantastic results from Harry. Overall rank in the last 4 years has seen him in the top 10k. He's been in the top 700k the year before that, top 14k, and then top 125k. So some fairly decent results over the past 4 years. Obviously a bit of ups and downs as you expect with FPL. But Harry, thank you very much for joining us, especially with the Champions League on. And I think we'll just kick it off and find out, who's your team, Harry? Who do you support?
So I'm a big Chelsea fan, so very privileged to have me on when Chelsea are playing. It's rarely that I free up time when Chelsea are playing. So I apologise if we score and there's a little bit of muted celebrations during the next half an hour.
That's all good. We certainly understand that. If it was one of our teams, we'd probably be throwing the laptops in the air. So it looks like you're not missing much, though. It's 0-0.
Fingers crossed.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you. It'd be nice to see an English team outdo a Spanish team. But there we go then. We've got a Chelsea fan with us today, ladies and gents. And Harry, knowing that, next question, I'm just wondering, how long have you been playing FPL for yourself?
So the official game I've been playing, so I think this is my fifth season. So those four you've read out are my four sort of main seasons. I started off by managing my dad's work league team. That's how I got into it. They used to play the Telegraph one and he wasn't very interested in it, but I started with my brother 1 year and then it turned out my brother wasn't particularly interested either, so it was down to me, and then a few years later I went on to the official one for my local barber, ran a league and he invited me into it. So and then from there it's just been growth and more time spent on it.
So you took the helm in the Telegraph League. Did your dad win anything?
I don't think we won. We didn't do badly. I think people thought that we were up there most seasons, but we never took home the trophy, unfortunately.
That's true British honesty, mate. I was expecting you to tell us, took the top prize. I'd have gone with that, but no, excellent. And so over those 5 seasons, then Harry, what's been your all-time highest ever finish?
So I don't know what came first. I became more serious in the season that I got my highest rank or the other way around, that it was the good finish that made me become more serious. But that first season in 2016, 2017, where I finished about just outside the top 10K, I'm sure we'll get onto why it wasn't in the top 10K, but basically it was John Terry's last game for Chelsea, and unknowing about this big top 10K finish and how much that meant, I brought in and captained John Terry in his last game when he got taken off after 17 minutes, which cost me a top 10K finish, and I've never been back there. So
that's an honorary thing to do as a Chelsea fan.
I mean, just true fan.
Yeah, he got the Guard of Honour and he got the captaincy in Harry's team. That is allegiances right there.
Yeah, well, if only I'd have known that was going to happen, I might not have done it. But it was over by then.
Poor boy error. It was early days. It's acceptable.
Exactly.
So from there, what would be? I'm sure that would probably be one of your most disappointing memories. What's your favourite FPL memory?
Again, it comes in that season. It was one of the first game weeks I was playing. I think it was maybe at that point I realised that it was quite a fun game when things went well. I captained Romelu Lukaku when he was at Everton on a Monday night game. Everyone had captained, I can't remember, in one of the weekend games. And he ended up scoring a hat-trick away. I think it was Sunderland. It made me, at that moment, I realised the highs that you can get. And it also made me fall in love with a Monday night captain, which is one of the best feelings when you wait to the end of a game week and your captain then gets a return. As I'm looking with Harry Kane this week as well, that late Monday night game, it might just have to be.
You know what? We're all looking at you just smiling because we're all just like, there's no better feeling when everyone 100%. Else has played and you sneak in with a triple and it's just like, just needed. It happened with Liverpool earlier this season, didn't it? Where Mane got a couple. I think it was the second game. It turned your week from almost disaster to amazing.
On the flip side of that, it's like when your captain is the first game of the week, you know, so like early morning on the Saturday for me, and then they draw a blank.
Goes all wrong. Yeah, you know it's downhill.
Exactly. You're just praying you'll get salvaged some point somewhere.
Long road after
the early kickoff. Yeah, never captain the early kickoff. It's too much pain if it goes wrong.
Exactly.
There you go. That's the first tip from Harry. Avoid the early kickoff, captain on the late kickoff. Harry, how are you getting on this year and what's your current rank?
Yeah, so a good thing that we've done this after this game week that's just gone. So I played my wild card this week and it went really well. I scored 91 this week, so up to 400k now. Had a good game week 1, and then the next few after there I was just falling. So yeah, played my wild card into game week 5 and it went really well. So 400k at the moment, so fingers crossed we can move up from there in the next few.
That's solid. That's very good work. I think a lot of people can consolidate with you from game week sort of 3 and 4. They were tough ones, but I mean, to be 400k, that's well positioned to push on into the second half. Hopefully you've joined the Left Back FPL League. If not, check out our Twitter page and join in there. There was a few 91s this week. NVD, you got a 91 as well.
It's a rare 91 from me. So yeah, as we were saying, you know, with kind of that jubilation when your team or a player does well. You know, I'm a Liverpool fan and it was a disastrous result, but you know, my fantasy team, it just kind of brought me back to life and gave me a smile on my face come Monday evening.
It wasn't a bad result. You guys got a point this week. Could have let in 7. Eh?
True. Should have won though, but hey, that's a completely different story.
Yeah, enough about you in Liverpool. Back to Harry. He's the star of this body. How long do you spend planning your team each week, Harry?
So, I mean, it depends. It depends quite how you sort of look at it. In terms of actually looking at my team and, you know, on the actual fantasy app, probably not much more than half an hour a week. But sort of time, you know, listening to different podcasts, watching stuff on The Athletic or things like that, that's probably more like an hour a day. So I spend time sort of just general football and Premier League content, but actually when it comes to the Premier League and the FPL stuff, and actually on my team, not that much, maybe an hour a week, but it's more sort of what I hear throughout the week is where most of the time goes.
Do you usually leave your picks until the last minute, or do you tend to do it after, like, pretty much after the games have gone?
Yeah, so a big thing that I learned from last season, I was really behind on squad value last year, and it come the end of the season, it meant that I couldn't make the gains that I wanted. So this season, I've kind of taken it in my stride. I know that I'll make an early transfer and they'll get injured, and it will happen once or twice, but I think that the money that I'm going to gain by making early transfers is more beneficial. Of course, if there's not going to be a price change, you know, I'm looking at that. If that's not going to happen, then I want to wait as long as possible. But if I know that I'm going to lose value on players, then I'll have to go early. I'm not against an early transfer.
That's cool. Fair enough. That's good advice, I think, as well. I mean, we heard sort of last week from FPL Salah about holding out till the last minute, but I can see where you're coming from there if your money's going up or down. Harry, that all said, I'm going to pass you over to Captain Russ. He's got a few more technical questions for you, and he's currently bottom of our league, so if you could help him out, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate it. So Harry, first question. I mean, this might be like kind of a bit obvious, especially this season, how this season's going, but do you go with a particular formation?
I tend to be a big advocate for a 4-4-2 or 4-4-3 at the start of the season. It's different this season, but normally it's much easier to predict a 6 million defender doing well than picking one of those 5.5 million or 6 million midfielders. Those 6 million defenders tend to be more easy to trust than those sort of midfielders that we're trying to pick between that come and go so quickly. So game week 1, I tend to start with a 4-4-2 until we know who these cheap assets are. And then it's a 3-5-2 or a 3-4-3, depending on where the money is. At the moment, I'm a 3-5-2 because we've got budget up front with someone like Brewster. So I think at the moment, 3 at the back is working because there's just so little clean sheets and anything going defensively. But normally game week 1, early on, 4-4-2 works for me.
Yeah, that's kind of hit the nail on the head there, in the fact that with the results that have been happening, there's been a lot of goals being given, penalties as well. It's just, like I say, like difficult to get a clean sheet. The next question is, do you ever take a points hit?
So I would advise not. That being said, I think I've taken 2 this season already. It completely comes down to the situation. If you're going to putting out 10 men, then take a points hit. I don't think a points hit for a defender is practically ever worth it, just because that clean sheet, if it goes, then that points hit is virtually is non-existent. You're not going to be gaining from it. So I think for attackers, then it can be worth it. Always think long term. I'm not one to do the sort of hokey cokey, bring in a player for 1 game week and then sell him again for sort of 2 hits, because I just don't think it's going to work out 9 times out of 10 in the long run. It just sort of depends on the situation. I try and take as few as possible, but if it gets to a game week and I think I could do with these players leaving, then I take them. But as few as possible is probably the best way to go. But if it works out, it's a good way to go.
Yeah, I mean, how many points hits approximately did you do last season?
Yeah, too many, I think.
Right.
And too many that didn't work out. I think I worked out one of the key things for me, we'll get to it, is patience. And I owned Martial, I think, 5 times last season. So I bought him, sold him, bought him, sold him. One of those players who he's just so inconsistent, so you're best off keeping him for a long time. I think I probably took on average 1 every 2 game weeks, which is probably too many to be taking.
Right.
Tried to chase points late on, I think, with a lot of moves. So probably too many last season.
Yeah, I think I did exactly the same with Aguero last season. Always bought him when it was too late. But again, another story.
Exactly.
Do you plan out your transfers for the entire season, or do you look a certain number of game weeks ahead?
So when I buy a player, I tend to look at a minimum of the next sort of 5 or 6 game weeks. If it's shorter than that, I think you're going to have to sell them pretty quickly, and then that just causes a headache. I'm sometimes looking, I plan in a transfer that I think, in 5 game weeks time, that there might be a player that I like. For example, West Ham, their fixtures coming up look really nice. And I've always known that sort of game week 8, I'm going to try and bring one of them in, whether it's in defense or attack. If I get bored, I look forward in the season and who's got fixture swings and things like that. But I tend to look sort of 5 or 6 game weeks tends to be the way I'm looking in. So sort of medium term when I make a transfer.
Okay, cool. The next question is might be a bit obvious, but what's your plan when it comes to choosing your captain? Do you choose one and ride it out for a number of game weeks, or do you kind of rotate often?
So again, one of my key learnings that I had from last season, I threw the captaincy armband around on too many players last year. I remember captaining Mahrez a couple of times, which, knowing how hot and cold he can be, I think is probably not a good way to be going. So I don't stick to one captain. I'm not going to put it on Salah, for example, and leave it for 5 game weeks in a row, but it will be sort of rotated between a few sort of key set and forget options. So the likes of Salah, the likes of Kane at the moment, and De Bruyne, I'm probably not going to captain someone out of about those 3 throughout the season, just to try and, because we know how consistent they are. I took too many risks with it last season that I'm trying to make it a bit more solid this year and just go for the known and the trusted players. So rotate between the sort of essential players in our teams at the moment is the way I tend to play it.
So really, then premium players, and when they hit form, that's when you want to try and get on them. The reason we asked that question is because I always think about, what if you were to just set and forget with Kevin De Bruyne last season, who, got the highest number of points, right, last season? Would you be in a better position come the end of the season had you had done that.
Yeah, so I actually looked at this as something for my team and whether actually I would have had more points if I'd put it on someone like De Bruyne for the whole season. And it actually comes out that more times than not, you won't.
Okay.